Soul Circle is happy to present our interview today with Mr. Nate Harp of the Truth Be Told. Oh my God, his company is phenomenal. And so we are so excited, Nate, to have you today. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. Been looking forward to this.
Good. Well, look, our audience is already excited about Truth Be Told, just the name itself. Tell us about your background and what led you to do what you're doing now.
Okay, so I always say I'm not a historian or a scholar of any kind, but I'm excited about history. And if you look at my bio on the website, I like to say that history doesn't excite me, it engulfs me. So I always want to know more about what has happened. Probably started in high school, history was just one of my favorite subjects. And then as I got into college, I got more interested in Black history. And so that has kind of carried over. So my background is such that I'm finding out more and more about our stories that we didn't know. And I think about my own journey in my own life and how I think I would have had a lot more self-esteem earlier on in life if I had known about some of the great things that we have done. So I had this idea in my head about tours. I like to give tours anyway. Every time my family comes to town, they want me to give them a tour, right? And so, I kind of had a natural inclination towards it. And then I said, well, in DC, you can get a tour all day long, but you can't get an African-American tour. You can't get the information about these little known stories that I think would bolster pride in anybody, right?
Right.
So that's kind of how the company Truth Be Told came about.
Wow. And you know what? That's such an interesting name for a company, Truth Be Told. How did you even come up with that name for the business?
So the name fell out of the sky. I was working with, there are a lot of people who will help you set up an LLC.
Right.
So when I decided that I was going to go forward with the company and actually formally do it, I said, okay, let me set up a LLC and begin that whole process just to make sure that, everything is legitimate. So I'm working with a lady who helps people do this. And she said, well, come up with your, company name. And, you have to run it through the registered database and make sure it's not using it. So I came up with 4 or 5 of them, none of which I really liked. But, it was, let's just do something and get going. So she was going through the process of registering with the state of Maryland and everything. And I remember I think I was in my office just doing whatever I was doing. You know how you're not focused on one particular thing and then something else kind of falls on you?
Yes.
And the name, because I was trying to capture what we actually do and why we exist. It's hard to do that in 3 or 4 words. So Truth Be Told just fell on me because that's what we want to do. Our story has not been truthfully told. It's been told, but not truthfully told. And so it just kind of fell on me. And I text her and I said, hey, this is the name, And she said, I love it, right? So she did whatever, they do, whatnot. And it was about a day later, she came back and said, you got the name. And so I was like,
Wow. And I heard you say the importance of sharing stories, our version, the truth of the stories. Why do you think it's so important to do that, to be able to not just to share the story, but to hear from others, who may have experienced some of those things or their families or generations? Why do you think it's so important to tell the story that way?
Well, because I think if you go 1 or 2 generations without telling your story, then it starts to get murky and the details fall off. And after a couple of generations of not telling your story, it's forgotten and then it's eventually lost. I think that kind of thing is by design for us in this country, right? So I think it's important for us to begin to tell, or first of all, African American history is part and parcel of America. You do not have America without us.
You better believe it.
We built this country, right? And the reason why, if you think about it, America is younger than almost any other country in the world, right? How do you become a superpower and all these other countries have thousands of years head start on you? Well, yeah, you can do it when you have 400 years of free labor, You could do that, right? So you do not have America without our story. So we have to, first nationally, and then in regions, right? And then in communities,
Yes.
and then in families, right? So, it's important that for your family knows your story and your journey through America, whatever that's been. And so it's the people in the communities that know these stories. So, like, for example, the Shaw tour that we've been talking about, I wouldn't just talk to a few people in the community, right? There's a lot of historical information, obviously, and that's great. But it's the people who have lived in the community that know these stories,
Right,
and can
right.
tell you, right? This didn't get captured in the historical record, if that makes sense.
That is powerful. That is so powerful. And you know what? First of all, I love what you do and what you stand for. But I think it's so interesting. We've had conversations, and I talked about what you're doing and what you bring to light and how you enlighten beyond Black History Month. So when you think about the tours and beyond Black History Month, what do you see with Truth Be Told? Because like you said, our history is just that. But what gets people engaged and wanting to know more beyond Black History Month?
I think that, and what I think for Truth Be Told, I think that like our niche, our market niche, because touring is obviously not new, and tour companies exist.
Right.
And at this point, we couldn't compete with any of the larger tour companies. But I always say you can get a tour in Washington, D.C. all day long and twice on Sunday, but you can't get a tour like what we offer. And so what we offer are those little known facts that bring color to the bigger picture, right? And so I think that when we're looking for example, when I'm doing research on a particular thing, like even with I have a tour called Discover Black DC. Of course, we can go around and look at all of the historically African American places in the district and whatnot.
Right.
But there are things about our history and about historical figures that didn't make it into the history books. I think about my, schooling and what I learned, which was very little about our story. It was kind of like, okay, we have to say something, so let's say a little bit. But you learned all about everybody else, right?
Yes.
But for example, my Discover Black DC tour starts at Frederick Douglass House.
Okay.
In Anacostia. I started there because he was beyond a great man. He was in the stratosphere of, and history doesn't quite capture everything about his story, and that's fine. At one point, Frederick Douglass was the most photographed man in America.
Isn't that something?
And we've all seen the pictures of Frederick Douglass. He's got white hair and long beard and all that. You've never seen a picture of him smiling.
You're right.
The reality is
kind of stoic.
Now the reality is, do we think he actually never smiled? Of course he did. But he said in his memoir, I won't smile for any picture because I don't want to propagate the idea that everything is okay, that we're doing all right, that there are happy and contented enslaved persons. And that, idea was going around, that enslaved persons are grateful to their enslavers, right? And so he said, you'll never find me smiling in any picture. And that's why he never did. And so that kind of gives you an idea of his mindset. This is serious business.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
But even that's the kind of stuff that you're going to get when you take a tour with Truth Be Told.
Right.
Who knew that about that? And even the meaningfulness of why he chose to, take that position about taking portraits.
And so here's the thing. None of this is hidden. It's you just gotta roll up your sleeves and find it. And the reason why Truth Be Told began January 1st of this year, 2022. But I've been thinking about it for a long time. And the reason why I hadn't started it 4 or 5 years ago was because I'm kind of a history geek, right? So I'm always reading about something. And I'm saying to myself, well, you can start this company and do this, but people are gonna say, Yeah, we already know that. It's already in the history books. It's already in the record.
Right.
And it is, but not like, for example, George Washington, Thomas Jefferson. Though these historical figures have been touted publicly and openly, right?
Since we were little people.
Yes, right. But our stories are almost like hidden, and put in the corner. Right. It's there if you want to dig and find it. But, right? For example, July 4th is coming up. Or, tomorrow, right? Or day after tomorrow.
Monday.
Yes. Okay. So I just, truth be told, we just put a video out. I rushed and got it done. I wanted to have it out before the 4th, so we just released it, I think, yesterday, about the Statue of Liberty. Now, and it's in our YouTube channel, so hopefully people will go and discover it. So there's a lot about the Statue of Liberty that people are not aware of. First and foremost, Statue of Liberty was gifted to America from France because they wanted to celebrate emancipation. So Edward de la Ballet, who's a Frenchman's idea to gift America with this statue. It's called, from his perspective, enlightening the world. We call it the Statue of Liberty.
Right.
He didn't get any support for it in 1811. The Civil War comes along. 1863, Emancipation Proclamation is signed. 1865, the Civil War is over, and in December 1865, the 13th Amendment is ratified, right? Which abolishes slavery. Mm-hmm. At that time, France was not a democracy. And he wanted to strengthen French and American relationships. He wanted to celebrate the emancipation of millions of people. Do I have to say it? Black people. Okay. And he wanted...
Tell the story.
And he wanted the Frenchmen to also call for democracy in France. So he found a sculpture, he got funding, and they started to construct this statue of Liberty. Liberty enlightens the world. So her right hand is a torch. Because liberty, what he's saying is, America is the template that the rest of the world should be following. Look at what they've just done. Okay? Now, he was a little bit premature, but overall, his original design has Lady Liberty with, yes, the torch in her right hand and a pair of chains and shackles in her left hand. The agreement, France will build the statue and gift it. America will provide the pedestal. The Statue of Liberty stands on a high pedestal. The fundraising in America is not going well because, as you can imagine, the optic of this huge statue with chains and shackles in her hand, that's not playing well in a court of opinion of people who can afford to. These are rich and well-off people.
Right, I get it.
So they have to modify the statue, which is why now she has in her left hand the tablet.
Yes.
In Roman numerals, July 4th, 1776. But that wasn't the original design.
Wow.
However, Mr. de la Ballet, he didn't completely get rid of the chains and shackles. They're still there. And they're at her feet. They're at her feet, scattered and broken, but there. Now, if you've ever been to the Statue of Liberty or ever seen it, the base is almost 100 feet tall, the pedestal. So you'll never see them because you can't see her feet. And even when you could go to the crown and look out, the perspective was what you couldn't see down to her feet, you could see out.
Right.
So they're there because he did not remove them, but you can't see them. Why is it that you can't see them? Now, what does it say? Bring me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses, longing to be free. That doesn't jive with emancipation. So it's been, in fact, repurposed. And all of the millions of people coming to New York Harbor going to Ellis Island who were welcome into America, not us, right? And even people who grew up in New York don't really know that those chains and shackles are there. There are pictures of them, and if you look at our video, I have some pictures of them.
Wow.
Because you have to rent a helicopter to get up there and look down like that, right?
That is
so
amazing.
These are the kind of things that need to be known, right? And if you would take it a step further, this statue, which was gifted in honor of the emancipation of African Americans, right? In celebration of the freedom that we still can't really see. And then has these chains and shackles that we also still can't really see.
Right.
Right? And not only that, but it wasn't delivered to us like the Jolly Green Giant that she is. It was delivered like a shiny new penny. Copper and deep, rich tones. That's how it was delivered. Time and weather have made it what it is now. But these are the kinds of things that we need to know.
You all hear this, we need to know that. And that's amazing because, again, going to the meaningfulness behind her, and like you said, what she's portrayed to represent, but to know that, like, I never knew about the piece with the shackles at the base and so forth. And when you're still looking at our world today, still a lot of shackles. So, I'm talking simple, symbolic. A lot of that's still going on that we quote unquote can't see.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
But we know that it's going on. And so people will, truth be told, people will portray something that they want you to see and to hear and to know. But when the truth is told,
right?
Let's tell the whole story, not parts of the story. That's why truth be told is so important.
That's what makes it.
Gee. Now, now we're going to have to do a tour in New York.
In New York, Battery Park.
But I know for Sister Soul Circle right now, we're coming together because we're so excited, ladies, to talk about our upcoming tour on Saturday, July the 16th. And we also plan to do a second tour on Saturday, August the 6th, here in our nation's capital. In particular, one of my favorite parts of the city, the Shaw neighborhood.
Yes.
So, Nate, tell our audience, what are some of the highlights that they can expect on that tour? What are some of the walkaways? Because, let me say this, especially being someone from the DMV area, we take so much for granted. I mean, I look when I go sometimes downtown. Just yesterday, I told you I had to go downtown. And I saw tons of people downtown, Freedom Plaza, at the White House, all the memorials. And I said, now here I am, a native of this area, and haven't even visited some of those places. I worked at one time on Capitol Hill, but that was because I worked there.
Right.
But then you have people who spend tons of money, time and so forth to come here. But to get into the nitty gritty of the city,
right? The
Shaw neighborhood, for one, tell us more about that. What can we expect?
So I wanted to respond to the where we are now in the state of my tours. Like most tours, you get on a bus and you go around. But I realize that people are still a little bit uncomfortable with that. So I wanted to do something that kind of took that into account. Okay. So the Shaw tour is a walking tour. It's a 2-hour walking tour. You're gonna get about 10,000 steps.
All right, y'all heard that,
right?
You gonna get those 10,000 steps in one shot.
Exactly, and it's 2 miles, so it's an easy walk through the Shaw neighborhood. Now Shaw's a huge neighborhood, and we can't cover it all in 2 hours. So we're just covering the upper part of it, okay? But we have, you're gonna get a perspective on the Shaw neighborhood as it once was and as it is now. So Shaw was where we lived, where we worked, and where we played. It was where we could settle. Its original name was Mid-City. It was renamed around the 60s with a Renaissance, and it was given the name of Shaw in honor of Colonel Robert Shaw, who was the commander of the 54th Massachusetts Regiment, United States Colored Troops, They made a movie, Glory.
Yes.
That's Colonel Robert Shaw.
Yeah.
So in Shaw neighborhood is you'll find Black Broadway, which is U Street. So you have you have the Civil War African American Museum and Monument, Duke Ellington's houses in Shaw, Carter G. Woodson's houses in Shaw, the YWCA, the YMCA. These were the places where we could congregate. These were the places where we could meet. These are the places where we could eat, and these were the places where we could get a room. If you came to Washington D.C. and you weren't staying with someone, you were staying at the Y, more than most likely. And the YWCA and the YMCA are still there, and as we go by, you'll see they are large facilities because they had gymnasium, they had rooms where you could sleep, they had places where you could eat. In fact, the YMCA is the place where Thurgood Marshall assembled his legal team as they strategized for Brown versus Board of Education. It's right there. We're going to take a look at alley living in Washington, D.C., which is a little known period of history where people actually lived in little shanties in alleys. Washington, D.C. is full of alleys, by the way.
Yes.
With no infrastructure, no lights, no plumbing. These were unscrupulous businessmen who constructed these things and rented them out, right? We're going to take a look at, yes.
So you're saying that they rented out living quarters in an alley?
Yes. It was not uncommon. It was not uncommon. So remember, Washington, D.C. was a part of the South. We don't look at it like that today, but it was. I mean, you had Jim Crow, you had segregation, you had the whole thing right in Washington, D.C.
Right.
In fact, and this is not part of the Shaw tour, but the largest peaceful attempt of enslaved persons to escape happened in Washington, D.C., right on 7th Street at the wharf. This incident called the Pearl. And that's part of the Discover Black D.C. tour. But in Shaw, you have Howard Theater, you have Ben's Chili Bowl, you have, yes, all of these things that are, this was our community. In fact, Shaw had more black businesses than anywhere else in D.C. at one time, obviously because that's where we live.
Right.
So we were allowed to live in Shaw, but we didn't just live, we thrived.
Right.
We didn't just survive. The White Law Hotel, which is a little known, wonderful story of just kind of someone just kind of like, you hear the term self-made.
Yes.
Well, John Whitelaw is a self-made man. He taught himself to read and write. His parents were formerly enslaved. He came to Washington, D.C. as a bricklayer's helper. And he is the founder of the Industrial Bank of Washington and the White Law Hotel. And the White Law Hotel was the first class hotel made for blacks and by blacks, he insisted. So the architect was one of the first certified black architects on the East Coast. And the plumbers, the carpenters, the masons, everybody who built the White Law Hotel was black. But that's not uncommon, right? But if you could see it, and we have some pictures of it in its heyday, oh my goodness, it was like first class. So it was, you go around the White Law Hotel, you might run into Joe Louis, Cab Calloway, Ella Fitzgerald.
This is the stuff we don't get in the history book, in our history courses.
Right, exactly. I mean, how else would you never heard that?
Stuff. We don't hear about this.
Exactly. People, there were 20,000 people at the White Law Hotel when it opened in celebration. And
how many?
20,000. That's 13th and T. People went to the White Law Hotel just because they knew they could walk in the front door.
We take so much for granted.
Because that was the only place.
Because that was the only place that they could go.
They could walk in the front door. And it just made you feel like somebody.
Made you feel good. Because we're always talking about, self-esteem.
Right.
And so forth. But to have that pride, who knew that story behind that? And to be able to walk in the front door of an establishment. Not to go through the back door, not to see those horrible signs, for colors, for colors only in this entrance or that exit.
Right. So there's a lot of history in Shaw, and so the walking tour, if we can kind of ignite a fire in somebody to go and discover some more, because obviously I don't know everything, but I just thought it would be a good idea. It's turned out to be getting some traction.
Yes.
And in fact, I had a gentleman who signed up for the tour. He's not from DC. I forgot where he moved from, but he wanted to specifically live in Shaw
Okay.
This is a white guy because he heard about the history, some of it. So when he saw the tour, he wanted to take it. So he came on the tour, and he brought his parents along who were in town with him, and they don't even speak English. So he had to translate everything to them that I was saying.
Wow.
On the tour, yeah. So we've had some interesting clients come.
That is amazing. So I know that there's so many highlights. So where does the tour start? So on July 16th, you know, for those who will be attending.
Yes.
Where does the tour start? What are some of the spots? I know you told me about a coffee shop.
Yes.
That was owned by a beautiful black family.
Mm-hmm.
And where does it end?
So it starts at the Shaw Metro. I specifically designed it to start and end at the Metro.
Okay.
So you don't have to worry about finding a place to park. So if you come on the Shaw Metro and you exit at the 8th and R Street exit, it will bring you out right in front of the Shaw Library.
Okay.
So we congregate right in front of the Shaw Library, and then we go by the coffee shop that you were mentioning is called the Roasted Boom Coffee Shop, and it's owned by second generation Eritrean immigrants, and they import most of the coffee from Africa, and they roast it there themselves. They have a roasting machine. So I was talking with one of their children who happened to be running the shop that day, and she was telling me that most people think if you look at the name, the name Boone is B, and then there's two coffee beans and an N, and they think that it's supposed to say roasted bean.
Okay.
But it is in fact roasted boon. And she was telling me that a boon, so the shop opened right before COVID. So COVID kind of shut them down for a little while. Now they're back open. So they're going to start having or hosting boon. And boon is a ceremony around coffee. It is a way, it is the way they have coffee in Eritrea. And it's, we put our cup in the Keurig and hit the button and that's that.
Right.
She said a coffee boon is like, it's akin to having high tea.
Wow.
So I'm going to be looking for that announcement because I want to be a part of that. So she said, if you take the better part of an afternoon to have boon. So, that's one of the stops along the way. We'll go past 10th Street Baptist Church where Reverend Dr. King spoke. Lincoln Heights Congregational Church is one of the oldest churches in DC. We'll go through the neighborhood with the YMCA, Duke Ellington's home, the White Law Hotel.
Wait a minute, we get to stop by Duke Ellington's home?
Yes.
Woo!
Duke Ellington's home.
Wow.
is in the Shaw neighborhood. We'll talk a little bit about the contraband. So contraband is there are a lot of things that brought about the end of slavery. Emancipation is just one of them. So this is not in Shaw. Actually, this is out down in Hampton Roads. But the word contraband came from a legal decision that General Butler, Major General Butler, had down in Hampton Roads, Virginia. Long story short, he was Fort Monroe's in Hampton Roads, Virginia. It was one of the few Union strongholds in the South. It is a fort. If you go down, so it's a one-tank trip. It's easy to get there. He had some enslaved persons show up at Fort Monroe, wanting to help the Union Army with information that they had about Confederate emplacements and whatnot, and seeking freedom. The Union Army did not have an edict at the time of rescuing enslaved persons. The Union Army was fighting a war, right? So it wasn't uncommon in those days for a Confederate officer to come basically knock on the door, because remember, they think the officers fancy themselves gentlemen, right? And say, hey, you have some of my enslaved persons and I've come to retrieve them. And the Union Army would return them because they didn't have a system in place of helping all these people yet, right? So that happened at Fort Monroe. General Butler wasn't the best battlefield commander, which is probably why he ended up at Fort Monroe, because he'd had a couple of battles and they didn't go well, right? Okay. But he was a lawyer. And so he looked at the law, and you know what he said? He said, we're in the middle of a war. and my job as a general is to prosecute that war. So he looked at what the law said, and he told this gentleman, he said, I won't be returning these enslaved persons. They are like anything else that a conquering army acquires. They are contraband, right? So what he saw was a resource grab. He just didn't want them to be used in service with the Confederate Army anymore. He wasn't an abolitionist, by the way, but he had no idea that in doing that, and the word got around, millions of enslaved persons just started pouring in the Union Army lines saying, we're contraband, right?
Wow.
And so that, with that decision, he freed more enslaved persons than any battle of the Union Army did, right? And so, but for him, it was just a legal matter.
Right.
It was because what he said was, and I applaud him, even though he was an abolitionist. He said to this gentleman, "You are an officer of an army of another country, and you're coming to request return of your property that is in line with the federal legal instrument of the United States. But you're not a part of the United States anymore. Remember, you seceded from the Union. So 11 states seceded from the Union, but they're still trying to draw on this law. So for him, it was a simple legal matter. No, we're not doing this. Before the month was out, there were more than 500 people at Fort Monroe because the word got around. You know, word gets around.
Right.
So
That is amazing.
yeah. So I mean, so I still like to say, the Union Army had to then set up these what they call contraband camps because people needed a place to live and be, you know, until everything shook out. And there were many in Washington D.C. and other places. In fact, anytime you see something that's named Freedmen's
Yes.
Village or Freedmen's, it probably started out as a contraband camp, and then it morphs into, right?
This is why you all have to come on these tours with Sister Soul Circle, because really the truth is being told. Who knew that?
It's all
Who
there.
knew? And if he hadn't, General Butler, if he hadn't put on his legal hat
Right.
as a lawyer,
Mm-hmm.
but stayed in that military mind frame, look what happened.
Right.
Who knew?
That's exactly what he said. He said, I'm a lawyer, but I'm also a general. And you're not getting this back.
Well, folks, just in this short period of time, Nate, you've already shared so much and so much interest. Tell folks, how can they register for the upcoming tour?
Okay, so if you are familiar with Eventbrite, you can go to Eventbrite. Make sure you're searching for Washington, D.C. area. And if you search for walking tour, you will most likely find it. Sister Soul Circle has put out a flyer with a link, and you can click the link and it'll take you right to the Eventbrite.
That's right.
And you can register there. Make sure that your mobile device is updated and everything so that the link works properly, because sometimes that can prevent you from getting there. But that's the best way to get
Okay.
there. Also, we are going to provide a QR code for you right in this video, and you can click that, and that'd be another way that you can get to it.
Awesome, awesome. And also, don't forget, there's a special, if you enter your discount code, the discount code is just the word Sister Soul, all one word, Sister Soul, and you'll get a special bonus on your ticket purchase. So before we go, Nate, what else is on the horizon? What else is, what's, I see those wheels turning. What else is going on for Truth Be Told?
So I have, I always have an idea. I have more ideas than money, but I'm working on a Segway tour for the National Mall. And the genesis of it was I actually wanted to try and do it for the Shaw walking tour.
Okay,
Because I've had some people say, hey, I really want to take the tour, but I have some mobility issues.
gotcha.
And so I looked at it, but Shaw doesn't lend itself to a Segway tour in that I don't feel like I can keep people safe, because we would be essentially in traffic with these Segways. And I just don't think that's optimal.
I agree.
So I started to think about how else I might employ that. And then the light went off. The National Mall is full of Black history. And it's you know, from the Capitol to the Lincoln Monument, it's quite a distance. So it would lend itself really well to a Segway tour. I'm looking at developing a Segway tour for the National Mall
Awesome.
and over to the harbor because there's significant history at the harbor. So if I can get all that together, that'll be coming soon. So be watching for that. And then across the country in different communities, my ultimate goal for Truth Be Told is that it exists everywhere because you can find Black history anywhere because our history is everywhere.
That's right.
And it is in all these little communities where where the people who are in that community know these stories and can share them.
So powerful.
So
that's so powerful. And I want to mention something else that's fabulous is the Harriet Tubman experience that you do, being so close here. Tell our audience a little bit about that.
So yes. So Harriet Tubman was born on the Eastern Shore of Maryland. So it's a really easy drive from DC to where she was born in Church Creek, Maryland. So there's a couple different options for the tour, but the longest tours, so we make a day out of it. The Tuckahoe State Forest has an arboretum, which has like a 1 mile nature hike. So I'd like to take people there and show them the terrain that Harriet would have had to traverse in her 13 escape attempts from the Eastern Shore to across the Mason-Dixon line. And then from there to the Harriet Tubman Museum, which is in Church Creek, Maryland, which is not far from where she was born. And the museum is small, but it's very well laid out. And so I like to take people through the museum. And then past her birthplace, which is still on private property for whatever reason, I don't know. But there is a roadside marker that delineates where she was born. And then to the Bucktown store, which is where she was injured as a little girl. Most people may or may not know Harriet Tubman was handicapped. She had a form of narcolepsy or epilepsy. So that's why she had those fainting spells. Because as a little girl, she was hit with a 2-pound weight in the head. And of course she went to the doctor. No, she didn't. So she
tell the story.
Right. They sent her right back to the field, bandaged and bleeding. And for the rest of her life, she had these fainting spells. So the store where she was injured, believe this or not, is still there.
What?
In the same spot. And it's open by appointment only. And guess what? I know the owner. So, we can get in. Well, you can get in. They have a website. It's a nonprofit. And if you buy, I think like at least 5 tickets or whatever, they'll open it up for you. But I always just call and say, hey, I'm coming with a busload, right? And so here's the power in that. No one knows what routes she took. That's by design. Because the old girl was smart. Okay. This 5-foot tall lady who was a giant in every other way. And she took advantage of that. Do you realize that they had a bounty on her head? Well, they had a bounty on his head. Because they were looking for Moses. And he must be this 10-foot tall dude with tree trunk arms. He had to have been. She took advantage of the fact they weren't looking for her.
They didn't for Moses.
Right. They were their bias said this has to be some guy. It has to be some big dude, right?
Because
well, I mean, come on, Black men are a threat. We always are, right? Yeah. So she took advantage of that. But so we don't know what routes she took. But when you're standing in the store, you know she was there. The general store was the hardware store, the post office. It was everything. Right. She was in there all the time. It's a stone's throw away from where she was born. She was in there all the time. So it's just something, at least for me, to know I'm standing in the same place.
Right. That her spirit.
Yeah.
Is still there and will forever be there.
Right.
I tell you, Nick, I thank you so much for our time together. The truth is being told. So, folks, we look forward to seeing you on Saturday, July the 16th. And if you can't make it on that one, our second day for our tour is Saturday, August the 6th, starting at 11 a.m. But we want you to show up at the Shaw Metro Station at 10:45 so that we can be able to start the tour at 11 a.m. It's about 2 hours long. 2 hours long. rain or shine, if it's not, as long as it's not a tornado type of weather,
Right.
the tour will still go on. Just put that hair up in a ponytail, whatever we need to do. Come to the Shaw Neighborhood Tour. So Nate, we thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.
It's been awesome.
It's been awesome. See you next time.